Welcome to Explorers of Spirituality, where we explore spiritual concepts, the nature of reality, and energetic healing with Brooke and Christine. Welcome back, everyone, and Happy New Year. Today, we are talking about some practices that Brooke and I like to do to end the year and start the year. And we'll also talk a little bit about intentions and some other things. So, Brooke, what is your favorite way to end the previous year and to start the new year based on this calendar system that we're on?
hmm I like to really start by just reviewing the whole year in general and noticing what themes played out, what lessons were learned, and really seeing, throughout the whole year what changes, what I let go of, what I gained, and kind of just like debriefing the whole year of like what went well, what didn't went well, what could I have done better, what goals did I meet, what goals didn't I meet, and really just seeing the direction that life is taking me this year and really taking time to just reflect on that. And journaling's huge for me. I love journaling and coming up with different prompts to really allow myself to reflect on, different themes and lessons that came out throughout this year.
Yes, I love that. I also like to reflect on the previous year. Do you, when you journal on it, do you kind of look back, like what are the biggest lessons and maybe how you can, I don't know, implement them or learn from them for the upcoming year?
Yeah, definitely. I usually see maybe it's something that I learned that I didn't have common knowledge of before, and then I see how I can, take that awareness and really integrate that into the next year to come.
And Brooke, do you set intentions or set your goals for the year in January, or when do you do this?
I set my intentions and go over my goals for the year in March, so around springtime. I use the winter time to really just rest and reflect on everything. And then when springtime comes, that's when I'm making all my vision boards, really thinking what my goals are for the year, setting intentions for each month. What about you?
So I kind of do it twice. I do it at the start of, this calendar, and I do it again also in the spring. And a lot of times it's pretty much aligned, but I have felt the last few years that in January I didn't really feel this like let's go energy, like this fresh energy that I feel more in the spring, and which makes sense, right? Because the springtime is the start of new life, and wintertime, like you said, is more a resting time. But I still like to do it twice.
Mhm.
And when you set intentions or your goals in springtime, how do you do that? Do you write them down for each month, or do you just make a list of things for the year that you want to achieve? Or kind of what does it look like for you?
So I like to get as specific as possible. So I'll like go in each category of my life and do like little bullet points. So like physical, career, relationships, like clothing, what I'm wearing with that. What else? Mentally, emotionally, spiritually, physically, like all that. And I'll really do bullet points for each of those. Who I'm surrounding myself with, what am I wearing, who am I talking to, how am I showing up? And then from that, I print out pictures and make a little vision board and I like decorate it all pretty and put little quotes on that. And I've been doing that for 4 years, so since 2020. And every year that I've done a vision board, everything on it always happens, even if I don't know how it's going to play out. Like I'll later look at the picture, I'm like, oh my goodness, that's so crazy how that ended up playing out. And another one I like to do if you're like super visual is a mind movie. And I think Dr. Joe Dispenza may have made this, and it's similar to a vision board, except you use like a song and then visuals, so like moving picture videos, I guess, and have like words or affirmations or things with that align. And then I'll create that as well. And then in the mornings, I'll watch that. So it feels like you're already living that. And then you can really empathize on like how you feel doing that to start to manifest that.
Yes, mind movies. I think Dispenza also includes that in his programs, but I think it's a different company who kind of came up with the mind movies or who makes
Okay.
them. But I know when you sign up for any of the Dispenza retreats, or at least this is what I understand, you get a personalized mind movie. But I think last year or 2 years ago was the first year where I tried to make one myself too. And you can use Canva to do that, where you basically just on your phone or in the Canva app look up pictures that relate to what you want. So for me, for example, I'd have a picture of my family in Germany in there or a picture of the beach, like the kind of things I wanted to experience that year. And you make the clips like really short. It's, I think, like a 1 to 2 second little clip per picture, like per thing that you want during that year or, whatever you want to manifest. And then you can watch that, like Brooke said. But I actually never finished mine because I was like, oh no, I want this to be perfect. Never ended up finishing it. So I like that you're reminding me of this. I'm going to do that again this year and maybe finish it.
It's super fun and it's, a way to let all your goals really flow out in just a creative way and like see and feel like you're already living that.
Yeah. And it makes sense too, because like you said, if you're visual and maybe even if it's hard for you to visualize on your own, like in meditation, to have something like that to still see this every day, get into the feeling of that being your reality and helping manifest it that way. Same with vision boards. I never actually make those, but I like that idea too.
Mm.
What I did one year was I made like a screenshot, like not a screenshot, a background for my phone of like a vision board. So it would have like a picture of my bank account on there with like lots of money in it and a picture of the beach. And what else did I have on there? Um, a picture of my family, just like of us happy together. I think we were on vacation in the picture. So like to constantly see those things that I want to look at and that I want to have as my reality and look at that all the time. So that's kind of simple, fun way to do it as well.
I like it. And when you created yours for your phone background, did it encourage you to take any steps towards that, or did you kind of just create it and then set the intention and see how it plays out?
So I think when we consciously manifest something, we we do automatically take steps towards the things that we want. If you get into that feeling and constantly think of, like if you're looking at it every day, right? You, because it's fresh on your mind all the time, I think you automatically, or at least that's how it is for me, that I automatically take steps towards making that happen. What about you? Do you feel like it's the same for you, or do you put a lot of effort into making it happen?
It depends what it is. Sometimes if it's, something a little more simple, or I would say like easier to bring in, I'll kind of just let it be and see how it goes. But if it's something that I actually have to like take consistent action to bring this in, then I'm, doing that.
Yeah, I've noticed with myself when I've done a different practice of manifestation, but it's like coupled with a healing practice. And it's something I was just like trying out to see how it works. And it's basically on based on this theory by William Bankston, who has cured cancer in mice in repeated experiments and has taught people how to do this. And they always were able to cure the mice of cancer and even made them immune to it. So the mice were injected with cancer cells, they would get cancer, and he would do this healing technique. And the cancer would go into remission, fall, like if they had like these cancer growth, they would fall off. And then if the mice were re-injected with the cancer cells, they would not get cancer anymore. So they basically became immune to it. And he wrote a book to teach people how to do this method. And the method is basically you make this list that he called cycling list. It's 20 things at least of things that you want. They should be really selfish. So it should be things like that are really like just something you want for whatever reason. Like if you want a new car, you would put that on there. If you want a new sofa, you would put that on there, or like whatever it is, right? If you want to go on vacation, And you then visualize each of these things in your mind. So, kind of like a mind movie, but it's just in your mind. You're not watching anything. And you do this over and over and over again. And preferably at times where you're feeling heightened emotions. So, if you're really angry about something, you would think, oh, I need to do my cycling list and start thinking about all the things. Or if you're really happy, you would do the same thing. And he says it doesn't matter if it's like a negative emotion or positive emotion. It just needs to be in a really heightened state of emotions to do the cycling list to practice. And what you want to do is basically get really good at just like going through that list quickly in your mind without thinking about it much. And then you base like then the healing technique is you would go through that cycling list over and over and over again while you're healing someone or some like an animal or person. And I've been practicing that cycling list to just like get used to cycling it in my head without like healing or anything, just like to do it. And a lot of the things became true, but it wasn't always in a desirable way necessarily. Like something would break. So I wanted a new washing machine. So then our old washing machine broke and I had to buy a new one. I wanted it like my husband has been wanting to have a new car. So that also broke. And then we had to buy a new car. Well, I mean, we got it fixed a few times, but it just became too expensive to keep on fixing, um, to where it wasn't really worth that much anymore. Um, so I don't know, like I think you need to, if it's like specific around manifesting, maybe you need to be also mindful about how you want to achieve that. That it's not necessarily like things breaking, but that it's more around you intentionally wanting to buy new things. Even though, I mean, it's fine that they broke. I'm happy we have a new washing machine and my husband's happy with this new car. But it's just, it was unexpected, I guess. Whereas I would have rather wanted it to be planned and expected.
So when manifesting, your desire or your outcome, you should be just as intentional with the steps.
Yeah, and I think it's tricky because they say you shouldn't be too concerned about the steps, right? It should just be you see and feel the outcome that you want and how it happens doesn't matter. And maybe in my case, maybe this was fine. I mean, it's not like, it's not like we were starving now because we had to buy a new washing machine or something, right? Um, so I think in a way, at least from like, the manifesting gurus out there, you shouldn't be too concerned about how it happens. And I would say that's true to an extent too, but like maybe you put in like I want to have a new car, but also enjoy the same lifestyle. I don't know. It's not actually, now that I think about it, it's not like we're disadvantaged because we had to buy a new washing machine or a new car. Like it's still fine.
Hmm. So it's like kind of like you had to get rid of the old to allow the new to come in.
Yeah, I guess. And maybe this was the way for right now. Like maybe it was meant to happen right now and this is just how it happened.
Mhm.
But also like I wanted to go to Germany and visit my family and that also happened. Like basically most of the things that I had on the cycling list have come true. And some of those I have taken steps. Like one of the things was like a butterfly garden. So like I would see all these like nice flowers in our backyard and the butterflies on it and in our front yard. And for that I took steps. I planted flowers, I planted seeds, but it wasn't really that I mean, maybe it was, but it's not like I was thinking, okay, this is on my cycling list. I now need to get out and buy like seeds and plants. And a lot of them actually I got for free from like people swapping plants or giving, like I'm in this Buy Nothing group on Facebook. Like people give away stuff for free on there all the time. So I got like quite a few plants from there too. So I feel like it's not necessarily conscious effort, but in a way it is. Like maybe it's subconscious because you are constantly thinking about it.
Mhm. I like that. So either way, you're planting the seeds, setting your intention of what you want to manifest, and you can either, help that grow, water it, give it all the things it needs, or you can kind of just let it sit and grow on its own and see what comes of it.
Yeah.
Christine, do you have any recommendations for people who, maybe set goals during the new year and have really trouble achieving their goals? And then this causes them to maybe, just give up or feel like it's really impossible to reach where they want to go.
Yeah, I think these goals that a lot of people set or that we're kind of taught to set, right? From, I don't know, like I've always been told or seen posts about like set these goals for the new year. And it's usually some very specific goals, like this year I'm going to lose 40 pounds, or this year I'm going to start a new job, or I don't know what kind of other goals people set usually. But I think if you're setting very specific goals that kind of cause you to get stressed out about it and that are actually hard to achieve, and then you feel like shit about yourself because you didn't achieve the goals you set for yourself and you see yourself as a failure now, to maybe change how you're setting your goals. Also, I usually just set my goals very much how I want to feel instead of like, I wouldn't set a goal of like, this year I'm going to lose 20 pounds or whatever. I would set a goal of, or set an intention of wanting to feel good in my body, making sure like I'm going to move my body this year, going to get lots of outside time. So, more goals that I can't really make myself feel like a failure because you can at any time still go outside and move your body, and you can still work on accepting your body the way it is, regardless of the weight that you carry with you. Same if it was like related to a job, you could set an intention of taking steps to feel content in your job, or taking steps to learn new skills to make yourself more marketable for a different job or something like that. Um, but I think really overall, it's best to set a goal around or set an intention around how you want to feel, like how you want this year to feel. Do you want to feel content with your life? Feel grateful for what you have and the experiences you get to experience, instead of even like saying, I'm going to go on vacation this year, right? Like, what if for whatever reason you can't? Like, you can still be happy and enjoy your life by not going on vacation. Maybe then you just like find some new things to explore around your town where you live instead of going somewhere else. And I think that can help us like not feel so much like a failure because we didn't achieve these goals we ourselves set for ourselves. And with this like culture of achieving and doing, it's easy to just like set goals that maybe actually stress us out instead of helping us feel better. How do you feel about goals?
I like to write down how I want to feel. This is something I did last year and I just looked at it this year and I wrote in my notes like I want to feel calm when I wake up and I don't want to feel anxious. I want to feel connected to my body. I want to feel safe in my body. And so these were all things that I wrote and I was looking back at and I'm like, huh, these are all things I currently feel now. So it's so cool to focus on, how you want to feel because when you do that, I feel like it's much easier to come up with reasonable and, small or big action steps to really help you start to get there. And whether if your goal is, losing an X amount of weight, like you had mentioned, maybe start with how you want to feel. You just want to feel good in your body. And then what steps you're taking to do that. Maybe it's going to the gym, maybe it's yoga, maybe it's movement, whatever that looks like for you, but then in some type of way you're achieving and setting yourself up really for success because you're focused on how you want to feel and creating that. And I think it's so powerful anytime when making your goals is really to focus on how you want to feel because you're always in control of, how you want to feel to some extent.
Yes, that's such a good point, that about like being in control of how you want to feel and the choices you make to get there.
How do you like to set up your goals?
So I usually just set intentions that are, like I said, more around how I want to feel. I might have some experiences in there that I want to experience during the year, but I try not to put it in a way to where it feels unachievable. And while like in manifesting, right, like what we talked about earlier, you might have like a visual of what you want in your life. I think when you put a time limit on there, so like usually when we set intentions or goals for the year, right, you expect that to happen within the year. And if it's for the year, I'd rather leave it pretty open. For my business, I might set a little bit more specific goals. They're usually not necessarily around money, but more like I want to make sure that I show up authentically. Um, I want to like nurture connection in my community, things like that, that are things where I can also go back to at any time during the year and look at that and kind of check in. Am I still doing that? Or have I kind of gotten distracted by money goals or likes or whatever, right? I mean, in the business, of course, we always want to make money because that's the whole point of having a business. But I think there's so much pressure also on making 100K or making 10K a month or whatever, right? Like you always see this if you follow like any business coaches or anything. At least like when I used to, that's what I would constantly see. And it's easy to kind of get distracted by that and make that your main goal. Whereas I feel like if you nurture the connection and showing up as you is what actually matters and where you can be aligned in what you're doing and being of service.
I love that. And I think that's so important too, is, to even specify, are the goals I'm creating this year, is this goals that I want to happen this year, or is it a 5-year plan, or is it a 10-year plan? Because I know that's something that's definitely happened to me is where, I'll put all my pictures on my vision board, and then something is definitely way too big to happen this year. And like in the back of my mind, I know, okay, this is going to stay on the vision board like a few more years when I take stuff off and recreating it because it's more of a longer term goal. So I think knowing that beforehand too can be super beneficial, just so, you're not setting up these goals and maybe it is something that's more long term and then it doesn't happen and you're disappointed.
And I think setting intentions instead of goals, I mean, maybe they're pretty similar, but intentions to me are more powerful than goals because you're kind of putting the energy out there that this is what's going to happen. Um, and I mean, there are so many studies around intentions and how impactful they can be. So I always, I don't know, with anything, I always prefer to go the intentional route, which is also easier for me to just stay connected to that throughout the year instead of like, writing down the goal. I don't know, to me like the different words already make a difference
Mhm.
for some reason.
Could you distinct the two, um, goals and intention?
I mean, just like how they feel to me, I feel like goals feels more competitive. Like it makes me think of sports where you're like scoring a goal or something. So for me personally, it has like a more competitive energy to it, which then also feels like there's more pressure to make it happen. Whereas intentions are more energetic, like they feel more energetically aligned to me. They feel more like I have more control of letting that flow instead of forcing it too.
Mhm.
And I don't know if that's how everybody feels about it. That's just me personally when I think about the two words of how they feel. What about you?
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I feel like I've never really put too much thought into that before, but as you're explaining it, I'm like, oh, I totally see like goals as like more like sportsy, mainstream, competitive. Oh, if I don't do this, I'm a failure. Whereas the word intentions feels like just more sacred and aligned and like planting your seeds. So hearing you say that, I totally see that. Yeah. And so, Christine, for anyone who's never set an intention that may be listening and they're like, I don't even know what an intention is, how would you explain that to someone and how would you explain setting an intention?
Oh, that's such a good question. Um, so to me, setting an intention is that I take some time and I get clear again how I want to feel, what it is that I want to happen. And when I set intentions, I connect to this feeling that I want to feel and then basically just say out loud or in my mind whatever it is. Like, let's say, for example, for like a business intention, for example, so every day actually I set intentions, and my intention every morning, for example, is that I can be of service today, that I'm guided to the people who can benefit from my services or from my energy, and that those people are guided to me. And so I say this out loud or in my mind, and I kind of just feel this energy flowing out of my heart space and into, the net of energetic connections that connects us all, and kind of trust that it is received by whoever needs to receive it. And really, any intention, you would just say it out loud or in your mind in a way as if it's already happened, which is similar to manifesting. And then just kind of visualize or feel and trust that this energy is going out and that it is either being received if it goes somewhere, or that, it is going out into what you would call the future and making that event happen. That's kind of how I would explain it. I don't know if that makes sense to anyone.
I like that. So you don't necessarily need to write it down. It's something you can say out loud or even just in your head.
Yeah.
Okay.
But like if you do it for the beginning of the year and you might want to go back to what your intentions were, then it's good if you write it down so you kind of have it somewhere to go back to.
I like that. That's a good idea.
On intentions, there's also a really, really good book called The Intention Experiment by Lynn McTaggart. And we'll link it below, but it's a really great way to just become familiar with intentions. And she has collected like all the evidence in scientific studies of where it actually shows how powerful intentions are. So it's a really great audiobook, or if you want to read it, to read too. But this is a good one to just listen to. Is there anything else that you like to do to start the year, whether that is in January or in March?
hmm I like to pull cards. I usually pull from three different decks that I have, and it depends on the year and what I'm feeling, but there's two different types of ways that I usually do it. One is I'll just like ask my guides, what message do I need to hear for this year? What do I need to know for this year? And I'll pull a card for that. Or another one I'll do is like a two deck. So the first one is like maybe the action that I need to take this year, or I guess like what intentions I can set for this year, and then what my soul wants me to know. So like if there's an important message or mission or something that my soul needs to know for this year to really embody and take effect in that. And then I'll kind of just remember that and try to carry that through each month with everything else that I'm adding in and that's going on. What about you, Christine?
Yeah, I also like to use cards, and I do pretty similar questions as you described. Something I do also is pulling a card for each month. So I'll write down all the month and then I pull a card for each month of like what the main lesson is that I need to know, or the main thing I need to go know for that month. And I write them down, and then I like to kind of go back to, I mean, I don't do this every month that I actually go back to it, but whenever I remember during the year, I like to just look at it again and see if it resonated, or, if there are any messages that maybe I haven't taken in or anything like that. So I do like to just go back to it as well.
I love that. And you have an Oracle deck course coming out soon, don't you?
I do. It should probably be out either already by the time this podcast is published or very soon after. And if you follow us, we'll share it to our stories as well. So, Brooke, as we're coming to the end of the episode, are there any journaling prompts that you would want to share with our listeners that they can reflect on as they're starting the new year and saying goodbye to the last year?
Yeah, I will give a couple for like a different few categories. So if you're focusing on celebrating your wins, which I think is so important, some questions that you can journal on are what were my biggest achievements this year? And it can be, super big or super small, but I think it's really important just to, remember all the things you did, whether small or big, and take a moment to celebrate that. Another one is what am I most proud of accomplishing? This way you can really remind yourself of all the things that you've accomplished throughout the year. Another one is what new skills or strengths did I develop? I feel like there's always new skills and strengths that I learn every year, and it's so important to really reflect on that because then you can take that and really integrate that into, the next year and following on. And then for really looking ahead in the year, some good questions to ask yourself are, what am I ready to let go of before entering the new year? This way you can really get clear on what you want to let go of to create room for new things to come. Another one are what are three things I want to call into my life next year? And so again, this could be like how me and Christine talked about. It could be maybe feelings or it can be, actual things, but really what do you want to call in? And then the last one is what word, intention, or theme do I want to guide me into the upcoming year? And so you can use some of these prompts to spark some inspiration on what you want to journal and, celebrate and reflect on the year and what you want to call in and setting those intentions.
Those are so great. Thank you for sharing them. One thing I just wanted to add as you're talking about letting go of things, something I actually do at the end of the year is usually writing down all those things that I want to let go of that I don't want to take into the new year, or just you can do this at any time really during the year. Um, but since the year's ending, I always think it's such a good way to let go of those old things that aren't serving you anymore. And I like to write them down and then burn them. And with the paper burning, it just feels more intentional and more powerful even to let go of that because like you can visualize like actually burning that up, whatever you're letting go of. Well, thanks everyone for listening, and I hope that you can take some of these prompts for journaling or setting the intentions for this new year and start your year off on a very intentional path.